What's up, world? Let me tell you about this beard growth oil I got from 12 tribes on Earth. 8 ounces of oily goodness with a nozzle that prevents sprays and spills, and soft ingredients that make it perfect addition to anyone's morning routine. From coconut to castor, all these oils are hand chosen. After using this herbal blend, the biggest thing I noticed is how soft, how strong my hair was, and how good I feel. Pick up your bottle today and make your beard the star of the show.
Shalom, family. Good to see you all here. Hope you're doing well. If you were on my earlier lives, and I kind of briefly spoke about this, where Donald Trump announced an indefinite ceasefire. And I knew instantly he did not talk to Iran, and he most certainly didn't. Iran has come out and pretty much say they don't give a crap about Donald Trump's ceasefire extension. And he did not discuss anything with him. Donald Trump act like he won this war and he can make all the decisions. And Iran has said, even on this occasion, Donald Trump ain't calling no shots on nothing. But I guess he think if he keeps trying, eventually people are going to let him just do whatever he wants. Well, those Iranians are not even acknowledging his ceasefire. And not only that, shots were fired out there in the Persian Gulf earlier today. And Iran seized two, I think they are cargo ships. They seized two of them. So, Donald Trump, you ain't in control of nothing. And the fact that you think you're going to tell people we're having an indefinite ceasefire, is that your way of trying to wiggling out of the war? That's what it sounds like to me. And Iran said they can start this mess up anytime they feel like it. I'm just saying. So they are not acknowledging nothing Donald Trump said. And that's exactly what I said yesterday. I said, when Donald Trump makes an announcement, it won't take Iran but a good 24 hours to respond. And here you go. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so you can get this directly from them and hear what other people think about this whole thing. Please give me a 1 if you can see my screen. No, he doesn't tell the truth about anything. I think we all just got to understand, not only does this man have dementia, he's a pathological liar. And when you lie on the level that Donald Trump has been lying, he's probably been lying like this, y'all, since childhood. So he's kind of now at his age, he's on autopilot. Thank you. Thank you so much. And Antithesis, thank you so much for the super chat. Alcha supporting. Thank you so much. All right.
Mr. Ambassador, what are you hearing about talks and the extension of the ceasefire?
You know that the naval blockade of the United States, it is violation of the ceasefire. And we told them that they should broke this blockade. We have received some sign that they are ready to broke it. And as soon as they broke this blockade, I think that the next round of the negotiation will take place in Islamabad.
So they won't take place until the blockade is lifted?
Yeah.
Ambassador Ravani, J.D. Vance has paused his trip to Islamabad. Does this mean that talks are not going to happen?
I am not sure about that. I have no information, but we said that it is a condition that at first they should broke the blockade, and after that the next round of the negotiation will take place.
So you think the military operations will stay in this pause or situation like it is today until then? Or what do you expect from the time?
It is depend to them. We have not initiated the military aggression. They initiated the war against us, and we are ready. If they want to sit on table and discuss and find a political solution, they will find us ready. If they want to go to the war, in this case also Iran is ready for that.
What about
But we don't welcome to that.
24 hours after President Trump said it was, quote, highly unlikely he would extend the ceasefire with Iran, tonight he is doing just that. Calling the Iranian leadership seriously fractured, Trump announced that he will extend the ceasefire until such time as their proposal is submitted and discussions are concluded, one way or the other. The president did not provide a concrete timeline for how long the new ceasefire would last. Trump's reversal comes after Iran refused to resume negotiations until the U.S. ends its blockade of Iranian ports. The U.S. military has turned away 28 ships from Iran and seized an Iranian cargo ship, opening fire on the vessel, Marines rappelling down to the deck. Overnight, American troops filing onto helicopters and flying out to board an oil tanker believed to be part of Iran's dark fleet of illicit shipping vessels. Today, Iran's foreign minister calling the blockade an act of war and thus a violation of the ceasefire, adding Iran knows how to resist bullying. The White House has been eager to jumpstart negotiations. Vice President J.D. Vance was preparing to fly to Islamabad today. This morning, Trump sounding confident Iran would send its own negotiators.
They'll be sending them. They have no choice but to send them.
Even threatening to resume attacks if there was not real headway on a deal by the end of tomorrow.
Well, I expect to be bombing because I think that's a better attitude to go in with. But we're ready to go. I mean, the military is raring to go.
But Iran refused to budge,
Sending people's
insisting
kids and
Trump
won't even
lift the naval blockade, saying
Oh,
only
boy.
then will the next round of negotiations be held. Tonight, the president still not ready to do that, saying he has directed our military to continue the blockade and in all other respects remain ready and able. Here at home, the war deeply unpopular. A new Reuters Ipsos poll shows just 26% of Americans say U.S. military action in Iran has been worth its costs, and a record 62% disapprove of the job President Trump is doing. David, Vice President Vance was ready to fly to Islamabad for negotiations today, but tonight he remains here in Washington. There are no talks on the books, and after threatening for days to resume attacks on Iran, President Trump has now extended the ceasefire with no end in sight. David.
Mary Bruce on the breaking development. Late this afternoon, another surprise from the White House. First, President Trump threatened new attacks and said he didn't want to extend the ceasefire. Then he extended it indefinitely, even though the peace talks themselves are in doubt. We have two reports on this, beginning with senior White House correspondent Ed O'Keefe.
Tony, the president began the day saying he would not extend the ceasefire. Then he did, faulting mixed messages from the Iranians as a reason to hold off on new attacks. President Trump tonight called the Iranian government seriously fractured and said we have been asked by mediators in Pakistan to hold our attack on the country of Iran until their leaders come up with a unified proposal. Iran is blaming the Americans for the impasse. Its foreign minister said the American seizure of their tanker in the Arabian Sea Monday and the ongoing naval blockade of the Strait of Hormuz are both violations of the ceasefire. Iran, he said, knows how to neutralize those restrictions. Vice President J.D. Vance is still in Washington, postponing a trip to Pakistan for the talks that were originally expected to begin this morning. But as the VP waited for instructions, President Trump sent mixed signals about the U.S. position heading into those talks.
I expect to be bombing because I think that's a better attitude to go in with. But we're ready to go. I mean, the military is raring to go.
Democrats argue Trump's rhetoric is sabotaging chances for a deal.
I mean, everyone seems to think that Trump has some sort of mad genius to what he's doing. It seems to me like he's just an arrogant egotist popping off in ways that aren't well thought out and don't advance any sort of strategic plan.
If talks resume, reopening the strait is a top concern, in addition to curbing Iran's nuclear program. Oil prices spiked again today on the prospect of more war.
So I would hope that both sides stay at the table and work hard to get this thing done, because the end result is when you do things erratically, as the president has done it, the American people suffer.
Tonight, an advisor to the Iranian negotiating team said President Trump's ceasefire extension is, quote, a ploy to buy time for a surprise strike, and that the blockade in the Strait must be met with a military response. Tony?
Ed, thank you very much.
Breaking news from the Middle East, where as many as 3 cargo ships have come under attack in the Strait of Hormuz. Iran's Revolutionary Guard say 2 ships are now under their control. Now, this comes just hours after President Trump extended the ceasefire.
Another developing story. So we first heard from a British maritime security group about Iranian gunboats firing on 3 passing ships. Then we got confirmation from Iran's Revolutionary Guards. They not only fired on 2 of those ships, but also seized the vessels, saying they were operating without authorization and that one of those ships, the Francesca, was linked to Israel. They were seized in the Strait of Hormuz. We all know about that. One of them suffered damage to the hull. As you said, this, of course, comes on the verge of a U.S. ceasefire and the capture of an Iranian flagged ship earlier this week. And it raised the stakes over that ceasefire that was supposed to run out today, but has been extended indefinitely overnight by President Trump. It is worth reminding that this ceasefire is not just between the United States and Iran, but Israel and Iran, too. So we are now awaiting response from the Israelis if this is indeed a ship that's linked to this country and what their response will be.
First, the ceasefire is on. It's extended. No, it's not. We're going to bomb. No, we are. J.D. Vance going. Yes, he is. He's still here. How do you make sense of all of this?
Well, Gail, it's okay to be confused.
Is it?
There are a lot of conflicting, not just signals publicly, but also developments on the ground. And I do think part of that is attributable to the fact that these negotiations are playing out in a very unusual way. Mm-hmm. It was smart of the president to signal to the Iranian regime that they couldn't indefinitely engage in negotiations and just buy time to rebuild their capabilities. But typically, communicating deadlines is done privately so that both parties have the time and space to negotiate and really assess if the other party is being credible and negotiating in good faith. Setting these arbitrary and frankly unrealistic deadlines publicly boxed the U.S. delegation into a corner, and they felt unnecessary pressure to meet a deadline that was just unrealistic based on the complexity of what's happening.
So the president seems to have bought some time. He also has given the impression that the deals could be wrapped up in a single day, but it does not seem to be the case that Iran is in a hurry right now. So what's the way forward?
We need to let the experts do their jobs. In my experience, preparation really matters. And what happens before negotiators actually meet on the ground is almost as important as what happens in the room itself. We need to let the intelligence community assess whether the Iranian regime is serious about making a deal. We have to let the intelligence community assess what the Iranian regime really cares about, what their red lines are, what their leverage points are. We need to let Iran experts weigh in on the personalities at the negotiating table. That preparation has to be used to inform the strategy that J.D. Vance, Steve Witkoff, and Jared Kushner are going to use on the ground itself. Without that preparation, I don't think these negotiations will be successful.
Are they the right intelligence experts to be representing us at this time? Iran does not seem to be intimidated at all.
We have no indication that the intelligence community is traveling with the delegation to Pakistan. What we don't know is if intelligence analysts, nuclear experts, and others are talking to the delegation prior to their departure.
U.S. President Donald Trump has extended the ceasefire with Iran. The truce was expected to end today, but just hours before that deadline, Trump said the ceasefire would continue. He posted this announcement on Truth Social. Donald Trump said, and I'm quoting here, "Based on the fact that the government of Iran is seriously fractured, not unexpectedly so, and upon the request of Field Marshal Asim Munir and Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif of Pakistan, we have been asked to hold our attack on the country of Iran until such time as their leaders and representatives can come up with a unified proposal." Let me break that down for you. Trump is making 3 claims here. First, he says Iran's leadership is divided. Second, he says Pakistan asked for more time. Number 3, he says the United States is pausing attacks while waiting for a response from Tehran. In other words, Washington is presenting this as diplomacy. but also as pressure. But Iran has not formally endorsed this extension. There has been no clear acceptance from its top leaders, although Iran's foreign ministry has acknowledged the extension. But figures close to the Iranian regime have called it a ploy to buy time for a surprise strike. So, yes, the ceasefire has been extended, but trust has not.
Breaking news right now, Iran has came out multiple times in the last hour or so and has claimed that they have not agreed to the ceasefire that Donald Trump is claiming on his Truth Social. Because first off, the United States is still keeping their naval blockade in the Strait of Hormuz. That's first off. But let me just read you what Donald Trump said that kind of just irritated Iran because his dementia is really like going up and down. So let me just read you what he says. Go grab your blunt, whatever you need. Let's read it together. He says, statement of President Donald J. Trump. Okay. Based on the fact that the government of Iran is seriously fractured, not unexpectedly so, and upon the request of Field Marshal Assam Munar and Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif of Pakistan, we have been asked to hold our attack on the country of Iran until such time as the leaders and representatives can come up with a unified proposal. Keep in mind, Iran has come out and said that is unequivocally false. So let's continue. He says, I have therefore directed our military to continue the blockade and, in all other respects, remain ready and able, and will therefore extend the ceasefire until such time as their proposal is submitted and discussions are concluded one way or the other, all of which Iran denies. They claim that he hasn't even spoken to them. Like, I don't even know where he's getting this from, who he's talking to. We don't know. We don't know. Republicans, step up. Let's hear it. Also, don't forget there's an important election in Virginia that's happening, and this could cost the Republicans everything. So that's something to watch for tonight. I will keep you guys up to date with all the latest news. Don't forget to share and follow along for more.
So just hours after Donald Trump extended the ceasefire with Iran, Iranian forces are now claiming that they've seized 2 ships. According to multiple reports, the ships were taken in the Strait of Hormuz, one of the most important waterways in the world, as we're finding out. Now, here's what Iran has to say. Their Revolutionary Guard claims the ships were violating maritime rules, operating without proper authorization, and even tampering with navigation systems. But here's the bigger picture. This happened just hours after Trump extended the truce to allow for more time for negotiations. So what does that tell you? Because on paper, there's a ceasefire, but in reality, tensions are still boiling over and it's getting even more complicated. There are reports that at least one of the ships were fired upon, and others may have been damaged during the incident. Meanwhile, the U.S. is still enforcing its naval blockade on the strait on Iran, and Iran has already warned that's a red line. So now the question is this truce actually holding, or are both sides escalating? All while calling it a ceasefire, because when ships are being seized in one of the world's most critical trade routes, that's not stability, that's a warning sign. Share your thoughts in the comment section, follow me for more, and subscribe to my YouTube page.
3 ships, 1 night, 0 response. And the man in charge couldn't finish reading a Bible verse. While you were sleeping last night, Iran sent armed gunboats into the Strait of Hormuz and opened fire on 3 separate cargo ships. The MSC Francesca, the Pammon, the Greek-owned Euphoria, all stopped dead in the water. 1 ship took heavy damage to the bridge. And the United States, the most powerful military on the planet, did absolutely nothing. Here's where it gets unreal. This didn't happen during a war escalation. This happened during a ceasefire that Trump himself extended just days ago to give Iran, quote, a little leeway. So let's get this straight. We voluntarily paused military pressure. We canceled diplomatic trips. We told Iran, take your time. And Iran's response? 3 ships, gunboats, mines, drones. They literally seized vessels and dragged them back to Iranian waters. That's not a ceasefire being tested. That's a ceasefire being laughed at. But wait, because Trump went on camera yesterday and said, and I need you to actually hear this, he said he would have won the Vietnam War. Vietnam, 19 years, 58,000 American lives. He said, I would have won it very quickly. This is the same man who 5 months into a conflict with Iran cannot get them to a negotiating table, cannot stop them from shutting down one of the world's most critical shipping lanes, cannot even protect
Now, that's pretty priceless from somebody that had bone spurs all through the Vietnam War. He wouldn't even fight in the war, but he would have won the war. You can't even win against Iran. Is this man on medication? Sound like he needs to be on medication. Know what I mean?
civilian cargo ships in international waters. But sure, Vietnam in a weekend, no problem. And here is the most dangerous part of all of this. The Strait of Hormuz controls 20% of the world's oil supply. Iran knows that. So they open it, close it, shoot at ships, seize ships, over and over again because there are zero consequences. Every time Trump draws a line, Iran steps right over it and waits. Nothing happens. So they step over the next line. Then the next, that's not a region in chaos. That is a calculated, methodical strategy, and it is working. Gas prices are already climbing. Global shipping is being rerouted. And the leader of the free world just extended a ceasefire to a regime that is actively boarding foreign ships in real time. One congressman said it best this morning, live on air, there are unintended consequences of bad foreign policy. He said it trying to criticize past administrations. But brother, you just described right now, so here's the question I need you to answer in the comments. If Iran is supposedly on their knees, why are they the ones controlling the ocean? Drop your answer below. Follow for updates. This situation is moving fast.
In Donald Trump's negotiations with Iran, Iran has decided to reject a 30-day ceasefire offer and instead laid out its own conditions for ending the war. Here is exactly what Iran wants. First, they want a complete halt to aggression and assassinations. Second, the establishment of concrete mechanisms to ensure the war is not reimposed on Iran. They also want guaranteed and clearly defined payment of war damages and reparations. They want the end of the war across all fronts and for all resistance groups involved throughout the region. And finally, Iran wants complete control over the water passageway that allows oil tanker ships to leave the Middle East. Iran says it is not logical to enter into a process with those who violate agreements, and that they will not.
An Iranian official says that Trump's ceasefire extension is an attempt to buy time for a surprise strike and says that extending the ceasefire has no meaning and that the extension of the ceasefire should not be interpreted as a genuine effort toward peace or de-escalation, and instead it is viewed as a calculated tactic that allows the United States to regroup and prepare for possible military action. And this perspective aligns with Iran's long-standing concerns over U.S. foreign policy in the Middle East, particularly regarding military presence and economic pressure, and the current situation is further complicated by the continued U.S. blockade on Iranian ports, and Iranian officials argue that this blockade by the United States is economically and strategically damaging, treating it as an act of aggression similar to direct military bombardment. The Iranian advisor emphasized that such actions cannot go unanswered, suggesting that Iran may consider a military response, including targeting American ships in the region if the pressure continues.
President Trump just decided he's going to extend the ceasefire with Iran indefinitely, but that's very different than what he said just last week.
If there's no deal, would you be willing to extend the ceasefire, or will the fighting resume, Mr. President?
I would say the fighting, if there's no deal, fighting resume.
I guess Trump has a different view today because he just posted this to his social media page saying that the Pakistani mediators asked him to extend the ceasefire because Iran's leadership is so fractured that they can't come up with a unified proposal. Trump says the U.S. blockade is going to remain in effect until the Iranians can get their proposal submitted. But wait a minute. I thought this deal with Iran was basically already done.
This process should go very quickly, and that most of the points are already negotiated and agreed to. You'll be very happy.
Oh, and it didn't stop there. Trump was pretty specific about what Iran had agreed to. He posted on Friday that Iran had agreed to never close the Strait of Hormuz again. Clearly, that's not accurate. The strait was never reopened. And he said that Iran would give the U.S. what Trump calls the nuclear dust. By the way, there's no such thing as nuclear dust. Trump made that up. What he's talking about is the enriched uranium that Iran absolutely still has. But Iran was like, nah, we never agreed to that either. In fact, the Speaker of Iran's parliament posted to his Telegram account right after Trump made that claim, saying Iran's enriched uranium is not going to be transferred anywhere under any circumstances. Just as Iran's soil is sacred, so is enriched uranium. So now let's go back to Trump extending the ceasefire basically on his own. To understand this, we need to look at the timing, and we need to look at what we know and what we don't know. So what we know is the 2-week ceasefire was supposed to end technically today, but if you're talking to Trump, he said it was going to expire tomorrow. But regardless, the Trump administration announced there would be negotiations with Iran in Pakistan to figure out if they could reach a deal to either extend the ceasefire or find a path to peace or go back to war. First, that meeting was scheduled for last weekend. Iran said they were not going to show up. Then we heard the meeting got pushed to Monday, yesterday. Iran said they were not going to attend. On Monday, yesterday, Trump said Vice President J.D. Vance, who is leading the U.S. delegation in this negotiation, Trump said Vance was wheels down in Pakistan all ready for this meeting. Then shortly after, we saw Vance walking into the White House. Then we heard the negotiation got moved to today, Tuesday. But we know the vice president never left Washington, D.C. And then this afternoon, Trump posted that he was extending the ceasefire indefinitely until Iran provided their unified proposal. We also know that Iran does not like the U.S. military blockade. And in fact, we know they're pissed about it. And they will not
Okay, y'all. Iran told Donald Trump there would be no negotiation as long as the blockade was still there. So they are absolutely not showing up until the blockade is gone. That's what they said. So I don't know why J.D. Vance would fly all the way over there, and you know you still got that blockade up, right? They already said they weren't showing up. And it doesn't matter what day they push it to. If the blockade is still there, Iran said they're not going to bother showing up. I don't know what part of that Donald Trump don't understand. Boy, this man is an idiot. How did y'all vote this man? How did this man get ahead of so many people in life? And he's this stupid. I'm just saying. This is painful.
negotiate with the United States until that blockade is lifted. But Trump won't lift the blockade until the Strait of Hormuz is open, which Iran won't do because they know it's a leverage point, not only against the United States, but also the entire world. So what we don't know is if Iran is going to agree to the ceasefire extension. The same Speaker of the Iranian parliament posted yesterday saying, "We do not accept negotiations under shadow of threats. And in the past 2 weeks, we have prepared to reveal new cards on the battlefield." Whether that part is true or not is unclear. Iran is known for some bluster. But the real question is Iran ready to show those cards on the battlefield right now and tell Trump to take his ceasefire and shove it? Or are they going to take advantage of this indefinite ceasefire Trump gave them and wait it out while also keeping the Strait of Hormuz closed? It doesn't appear that Iran is on any timeline, doesn't seem like they're in any kind of rush, but we know the Trump administration is. They really want this deal done. The president sort of wants to get out of this war sooner rather than later, and Iran knows that too.
We have major news as President Donald Trump announcing that essentially the ceasefire is going to be extended despite the fact diplomacy has completely failed. Iran refused to show up to the peace talks in Pakistan. Now, you would think that that would lead to some level of military action, the war restarting, but President Trump out with a very interesting statement, as well as we had B-52s that were loaded up, and Iran is scrambling missiles in the streets right now, possibly for a preemptive strike. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. What do you think about Trump pretty much extending the ceasefire, even though Iran gave us nothing in return. How do you think this is going to end? What comes next? Get active in the comments.
Y'all, Iran already said they got their missiles in the launch pads over there. They're ready. They said anytime this war jumps off, they are ready. They already loaded their missiles in launch pads already. So they are ready for round 2 of this war, if that's where it's going to go. They're very prepared. So Donald Trump needs to stop perpetrating a fraud and just get those ships out of there. It is so unnecessary, you know? And it's another reason why nobody's going to ever trust America again. So the ships are still there. So Iran will be MIA from the negotiation talks. Oh, well, they're the ones that don't have nothing to lose. Donald Trump got everything to lose in this whole thing.
And at the same time, the U.S. blockade is actively collapsing. The IRGC opened fire on the first ship after it had ignored the warnings of the Iranian armed forces, and the second ship, named Euphoria, was then stopped after being fired upon, followed by the targeting of a third vessel. IRGC Naval Command posted on social media the 2 seized ships had endangered maritime security by operating without the necessary permits and tampering with navigation systems. At the same time, new reports indicate at least 34 Iranian-linked tankers and gas carriers have successfully bypassed the U.S. naval blockade. Of the 34 identified vessels, 19 exited the Persian Gulf, while 15 entered the region. At least 6 outbound tankers were confirmed to be carrying roughly 10.7 million barrels of Iranian crude oil. These shipments equate to about $910 million in potential revenue for Iran. Many of the vessels simply turned off their transponders to go dark and were only detected via satellite imagery. This is embarrassing for the United States and a complete failure by Donald Trump. Iran has once again shown us that it controls the Strait of Hormuz and can effortlessly bypass the U.S. naval blockade.
Hey, what's up, America? Iran attacks 3 ships in the Straits of Hormuz and seizes 2 vessels. So this comes right after Donald Trump extended the ceasefire with Iran. Apparently, fast attack boats from what's left of the Iranian Navy came out and attacked 3 international ships, seized 2 of them, and said they hadn't paid the proper toll and didn't have the proper permits. Now, like I said, this came just after Donald Trump extended a ceasefire with the Iranian government, saying that their government was too fractured to make a deal with. But literally hours after that extension of a ceasefire, the Iranian government was seen parading ballistic missiles around the streets of Tehran and now seizing vessels in the Straits of Hormuz, taking control once again of an international waterway. So first of all, that's bullshit because we extended the ceasefire and then those fuckfaces attack everybody. But second of all, I think we lost the point of why we were going into Iran in the first place. It wasn't to control the Straits of Hormuz or a nuclear non-proliferation treaty. It was to destroy the Iranian government and the IRGC and then allow the civilian population to take control of Iran. That's why we did this. Not to make an agreement with the same government that's murdering a bunch of innocent people and to get a nuclear deal for Israel. That's not why we fucking started this shit. So it is terrible that the Iranian government attacked 3 vessels and seized 2, but I think we've lost the point as to why we went to Iran in the first place. It wasn't for some Straits of Hormuz deal. It was to get rid of their government so they wouldn't commit mass murder on civilians. So how the fuck did we get to this point exactly?
You guys, I'm starting to get the feeling that Trump is basically Iran's ex just talking to himself in their voicemail because they don't seem to know anything about a ceasefire. Can't say I'm surprised. Iran has attacked several ships at the Strait of Hormuz this morning, and a senior Iranian official has said that Trump's last-minute ceasefire extension means nothing, okay? There were no injuries, and that is a good thing. But the master of the container ship, the vessel was approached by an Iranian gunboat. No warning was given, and then it fired upon their ship. I'm sorry, it's not funny. This is a fucking mess. Anyways, the vessel was heavily damaged. The second vessel that was fired upon was a cargo vessel. There was no damage or injuries. That's good. And then Iran's Navy attacked a third ship called Euphoria. I don't know, man, but apparently they have seized 2 of the ships. And although Trump has indefinitely extended the ceasefire, and he said, I'm sorry. He said that everything is going great. Does Iran know what's going on, sweetie? Because it doesn't sound like they've even spoken to you. It doesn't sound like y'all are on the same page at all whatsoever, which is not surprising because when you threaten to bomb a country back to the Stone Ages multiple times, they stop taking you seriously as someone who wants to negotiate. And then they start playing full force as dirty as they can because why wouldn't they? They have nothing to lose. You're going to bomb them back to the Stone Ages, right? Well, they might as well throw it out on the table. I think it says a lot that the United States seems to be continuously sending J.D. Vance in place of Trump to do these negotiations in Pakistan. And I think that the people who are still backing and supporting this administration need to have a long, hard look in the mirror and ask themselves, do you want your grandchildren to have a future? Because if you do, maybe you should fucking do something about this.
This is breaking news. Just hours after the ceasefire was extended, 3 separate ships have been attacked in or near the Strait of Hormuz. 2 of them confirmed by the British Maritime Trade Operations Center, 1 of them by the group Vanguard. Iran has now taken responsibility for all 3.
Trump extends the ceasefire, but then, oh, holy crap, this is like now. This is like real life, like as far as reporting is concerned. Look at this time, guys. This is like, right, Eastern Standard Time is like 8:17. It's like 8:37 Eastern Time right now at the time that I'm making this video. So I told you guys to lock Friday. I told you to lock Monday. I wasn't excited about what was going to happen here. And sure enough, here we are. So we'll see how the market responds, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say lock your rate as soon as humanly possible.
Iran just told Trump his ceasefire extension means absolutely nothing. Trump woke up this morning and said there's basically 0 chance he's extending the ceasefire with Iran. Said the deadline is Wednesday. He said Iran better show up to talks in Pakistan or else. But that was this morning. And you know what Iran said in response? One of their top officials literally called it a ploy to buy time for a surprise attack, a surprise strike, and said, I'm not paraphrasing, that the time for Iran to take the initiative has come. So let's be real about what's actually happening here, because the ceasefire that started on April 8th has been a complete mess from day one. Both sides have been violating it. Iran is fierce because the U.S. is still blockading their ports, which Iran's foreign minister is calling an act of war. And Trump is over here saying Iran's government is seriously fractured, and that's why they can't get a unified response to the table. Now, the talks in Pakistan that were supposed to happen this week with J.D. Vance sitting across from Iran's parliament speaker, well, that's postponed indefinitely because Iran refused to show up. And the gap between what each side wants is enormous. The U.S. wants Iran to completely dismantle its nuclear program, cap its missiles, and cut off Hezbollah and Hamas. Iran is saying, absolutely not. We have the right to enrich uranium. We're not giving up our military, and we're not abandoning our regional allies. Oh, and there's another fight over Iran's stockpile of highly enriched uranium. Trump is claiming Iran agreed to let the U.S. take it. Iran says that the uranium is not leaving the country, period. So the question no one's really putting out there right now is, if Iran refuses to submit a proposal, what does Trump actually do next? Because every time he draws the line, well, he tackles out. Do me a favor, please hit that like button, share with all of your friends, bookmark this video, and drop your answer to this question in the comments. Do you think Iran will actually come to the table, or is the ceasefire already dead and done with? Let's talk about it.
The president had appeared optimistic about talks in Pakistan just before 9 this morning.
I want to make a great deal.
But by 12:30, lead U.S. negotiator Vice President Vance arriving back at the White House, his trip to Pakistan off for today, with Iran refusing to commit to attend talks. Earlier, President Trump insisting the US is in a strong negotiating position to get Iran to sign a nuclear deal.
We're going to make sure that they never have a nuclear weapon because they'll use it to blow up, because they're religious fanatics, and they will use that weapon to blow up the world.
The US blockade pressuring the Iranian regime. The Pentagon intercepted another oil tanker under sanctions, this time in Southeast Asia, while President Trump saying an Iranian cargo ship seized Sunday by the US Navy was carrying material from China.
We caught a ship yesterday that had some things on it which wasn't very nice, a gift from China perhaps, I don't know. I thought I had an understanding with President Xi, but that's all right. That's the way war goes, right?
Iran demanding the US stop its blockade before any talks, while reversing its decision to reopen the Strait of Hormuz, firing on an oil tanker this weekend. Its captain pleading with Iran to stop its attack.
You gave me clearance to go. We're fighting now.
Both sides today were threatening a return to war. NBC News learning Iran's military still retaining significant capabilities despite being badly damaged, including having thousands of missiles and attack drones, according to a recent statement to lawmakers from the Pentagon's internal intelligence agency. Here in Pakistan's capital, officials say they've been in constant contact with Iran to convince them to come back to the table. President Trump tonight indicating his ceasefire will now last until talks are concluded. Quote, one way or the other.
Donald Trump is panicking as Iran has rejected his ceasefire offer. Donald Trump apparently only prepared for a 4 to 5 day war against Iran, and he assumed that if the United States were to kill the Ayatollah Khomeini, that Iran would immediately want a ceasefire and that Donald Trump would be able to declare a victory and that war would not spread throughout the region. Donald Trump was warned that his personal views that that's what would take place were wrong, and he was indeed wrong. Hat tip to Ynet. They were the first to report, and they're based out of Israel, that Donald Trump is now begging Iran for a ceasefire, and Iran immediately rejected it and said when there will not be a ceasefire will be on our terms. And now one of the major issues the United States is facing is, will we be running out of munitions? Do we have the capabilities for a long-term war if this drags out for many, many months? And in addition, we've learned some horrific news this morning that a number of our soldiers, a number of U.S. service members have indeed been killed in action during the war already. We've learned that there have been, so far, 3 U.S. service members killed in action. 5 have been seriously wounded so far during Operation Epic Fury, is what the Trump regime is calling it. We're referring to it at the Midas Touch Network as Operation Epstein Fury, or the Jeffrey Epstein War. The U.S. Central Command, CENTCOM, announced the deaths of these 3 U.S. service members. 5 are seriously wounded. We're following that. We're expecting, sadly, the number of deaths to increase. These casualties, as Open Source Intelligence Defender also notes, these casualties are likely the result of Iranian ballistic missiles and one-way attack drones that have been striking U.S. bases in Bahrain, Kuwait, and the United Arab Emirates, with some bases suffering much more serious damage than had been previously reported or announced by CENTCOM. Indeed, our government is giving false information saying that the attacks have not been serious against our bases, only for us to learn later that they are indeed very, very serious. And now our service members have been killed, and Donald Trump has blood on his hands, and this whole regime in the United States has blood on their hands. Iranian's president, Masoud Pezeshkian, he is alive, and he's stating this morning on state-run television that the Interim Leadership Council is now operational and has assumed constitutional.
As usual, y'all, this is just one big old mess. It is one mess. And Donald Trump, like I said, this man is not a peacemaker. The only thing he knows how to do is create chaos. He is not the kind of person that knows how to sit down and come up with a peace deal. He's not about peace. This man, he must got the wildest demon embedded inside of him. The Most High must have planted the biggest, craziest lunatic demon in him, because he does not make 1 ounce of sense, which is why he never should have gotten in this war. This man got in over his head. He doesn't know what to do at this point. So, y'all just keep an eye on it. But Iran is saying, as far as they're concerned, there is no extended ceasefire, like Donald Trump is trying to say. So we shall see. So I want to thank you all for being here. Thank you for, following all of this, because I know it's a lot and it can be overwhelming some days with everything that we're listening to. But one thing we must do and must continue to do is stay out of it. If the Most High is raining judgment down on these folks and you decide to get in the way, you will get caught up in that judgment too. It's not worth it. We need to stay out. And if we can keep our young people out of this military, yeah, keep them out. Don't fight for this country, because Donald Trump will never care about what happens to you. And you'll just go over there and be just like other military personnel. You'll be sitting there starving. And he's sitting in his White House and eating meals every day. So, y'all, I will see you tomorrow on all new topics, and have a wonderful, wonderful evening. Shalom, family.